When it was time to have kids, he changed his mind. Well, I don't want kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage?
Wait. Hold on. He said a lot there. Let's talk about it. He said a marriage contract is more protection than a prenup. What in the world is he talking about? What up, YouTube family and folks? This is Kevin's perspective, the perspective that keeps on giving. Back to give another one. If you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty. You see the title. So there was a discussion that happened recently with Hafiz from the Roommates podcast and Coach Greg Adams. And I promise you, I am not going to go through all of it. It's been circling around the YouTube space for a while. A lot of different people reacted to it, but there's certain points in it that I didn't hear a lot of people talk about, and I want to bring it up. To me, it made for great conversation and disagreement. Let's go ahead and dive right into it.
If I'm an individual and I was divorced and I had a difficult experience via marriage, I'm going to have a biased opinion via marriage. Allie has a positive experience with marriage, so she can have a bias towards, well, great marriages can work, right? Mm-hmm. So similar to me, the people I admire the most, the people I look up to, are married people. Patrick Bet-David, Jordan Peterson, my father, Pastor Mark Driscoll, people who I look up to the most, right? Long-term marriages, the people that I celebrate a lot. Long-term marriages. My father and mother been married for over 30 years. Great, healthy marriage. So that's my opinion. My Pastor Hattie Lewis, been married for over 25 years. So that's my worldview.
All right, so he mentioned people that were married long-term, right? People that were married for 20, 30 years. And those were the people that were his example. But let's talk about examples for a second, because examples show a depiction between good and bad. So essentially, I agree that you should follow the example of your parents who were married for 20, 30 years, because they show a depiction or display of what a healthy marriage should look like because of their longevity. So you follow in those footsteps, but here's where marriages set themselves up for failure. Because as you're walking in those footsteps, people tend to walk into sinkholes without realizing it because you don't understand the terrain that you're in. What do I mean by that? So you can follow examples, but examples only show you depictions. They don't show you details. And what most people fail to do is do their due diligence in learning the details and information that they need to sustain their marriage. So after wedding day, you stop doing research. You stop asking questions. You stop going places. You stop learning how a marriage works and just turn everything into an experience. People immediately get complacent, which is why even though they follow in their parents' footsteps, their parents have been married for 30 years, but they're divorced by 3 years. Because you're looking at the picture, but you're not looking for the details. You go to premarital counseling, but you never go back. Now, I'm not going to say go ask people the details about their marriage because they're never going to tell you anyway. For one, it's none of your business. And two, your relation and biases will not make you as receptive to the information as you should be. You want to know what happens in marriage, but not in their marriage. And this is where the correct counsel is important. So I'm not disagreeing with Hafiz as far as following an example of a long-term relationship and a long-term marriage, but you have to follow that up with constantly feeding your marriage with long-term information. Most of our parents and grandparents got their long-term information from the church because the Bible is very detailed on what you should do and not do in your marriage. And they made that the standard. People say, I don't want gender roles in my marriage, but the roles came from that standard. All the information came from that standard. But let me get back into another part of this discussion. We're going to fast forward a little bit because there's something else that he said that was interesting.
Did you get a prenup when you got married?
No, and I
didn't.
I'll explain to you guys why. So I think, and I talked about this, I love the prenup conversation. I think it's important. Mm-hmm. There's three reasons why I didn't get a prenup. But the first reason is I actually believe prenups are good and bad. They're good because they protect you. They're bad because they don't protect you enough. What I personally believe is something which I did research about this called a marriage contract. contract.
What?
You may not like this, but please give this to me.
What?
How many kids you have?
3.
So let's say Allie married her man and she said she wanted 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
She gets married, she wants 3 kids. All of a sudden,
prior to marriage,
he
gotcha.
agrees. She says, honey, I want 3 kids. Is that cool with you? He said, of course, baby, you want 3 kids. We're gonna have 3 kids. She's married. 5 years into it. Hey, when are we having our kid? Next year. When are we having our kid? Next year. It's year 8. He's like, I don't want any kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage?
Yes.
He agreed, and she had both agreed that we were gonna have 3 kids. That's why she married him. When it was time to have kids, he changed his mind. Well, I don't want kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage?
Wait. Hold on. He said a lot there. Let's talk about it. He said a marriage contract is more protection than a prenup. What in the world is he talking about? Let's talk about this marriage contract for a second based off the ideology of the example that he used. A prenup is just the documentation of the allocation between both spouses in the event of a divorce, right? Leave in the comments if I'm wrong. Let me know what y'all think right now. It's the agreement of the terms and conditions in the event of a divorce. A marriage contract, from what I'm hearing, is terms and conditions that have to be met in order to not get divorced. It's the agreement of the obligations set for the duration of the marriage. The prenup has nothing to do with the day-to-day interworkings of the marriage, but everything to do with the divorce. So you can do whatever you want to do in the marriage. The marriage contract determines the interworkings of the marriage as far as everything you have to do to stay married and not get divorced, from what I understand Hafiz is saying. So I've heard many people say, I don't want to get a prenup because it gives the connotation that the marriage is doomed to fail, that maybe the marriage won't work and we'll get divorced one day, like a foreshadow. But to me, the marriage contract does that way more and adds more stress. It seems more strenuous to me. A marriage contract is pretty much saying that you need to abide by these terms and conditions and rules, or else. Based off of how he's describing it, either follow the contract or else. Why would anybody in their right mind get married under those conditions and think that it's going to be a successful long-term marriage? And if you give vows to each other, then it doesn't matter what the contract says, right? Because as soon as you say for better or for worse, through sickness and health till death do us part, then it contradicts everything in the contract. Wouldn't it be that till death do us part supersedes everything in the contract? So the question is, which one supersedes the other? The vows or the marriage contract? Because in my opinion, if you feel as though there's deal breakers in your marriage that will cause your marriage to end, then just add it to the vow and don't say till death do you part. Because obviously there are things that's going to happen before death that's going to do you part. But let's back up and listen to this example again, because there's more to this that I want to talk about.
What I personally believe is something which I did research about, this called a marriage contract. You may not like this, but please give this to me. How many kids you have?
3.
So let's say Allie married her man and she said she wanted 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
She gets married, she wants 3 kids. All of a sudden,
prior to marriage,
he agrees. She says, honey, I want 3 kids. Is that cool with you? He said, of course, baby, you want 3 kids. We're gonna have 3 kids. She's married. 5 years into it. Hey, when are we having our kid? Next year. When are we having our kid? Next year. It's year 8. He's like, I don't want any kids anymore. Should she stay in that marriage? He agreed, and she had both agreed that we were gonna have 3 kids. That's why she married him. When it was time to have kids, he changed his mind. Well, I don't want kids anymore.
All right, so let's use this example, right? So you're trying to tell me that they both agree to have 3 kids in the marriage, and she comes up to him a few years later or throughout the years asking, when are we going to have kids? And he decides he doesn't want to have kids. So Hafiz is pretty much saying that is a means for divorce because the husband didn't fulfill his obligation. But let's talk about the obligation for a second, because was there a time constraint in the contract? So because what she wanted to happen didn't happen in the allotted time that she decided it was supposed to happen, then that means that there's divorce on the table now. She's on the receiving end of my body, my choice, so now it's over. When you create contracts, they have to be very specific. And this is why marriage contracts to me are complete BS, because of how detailed they have to be in order for them to be valid. More specifically, valid in court. The judge will throw this right into the trash can. Just because they didn't have kids within 8 years, it doesn't matter because they're still married. And marriage is a lifetime. So as long as lifetime is still on the clock, then that means the marriage still stands because the obligation can still be met. This is where not having specifics can come to bite you. Because did the contract say that they had to have kids within 6 years? Did the contract say that he couldn't change his mind? Does it say that the kids had to be conceived by her? What's the method of having the 3 kids? Because you can have them by adoption, by surrogacy. There's so many different ways here. What if you didn't find out until after you're married that he couldn't have kids? Then what? Or what if she makes him agree to having the kids and then she finds out she can't have kids? What happens then? A marriage contract in theory sounds good, but everything he's saying is just theoretical. It's not in realism. A marriage contract only protects your fantasy as opposed to a prenup, which is more set in reality and actuality of what the situation actually is. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't make sense.
Let's go on the guy's side, because the red pill guys love when guys are being the victim. So you're a man. And in your marriage, you agreed that we're gonna have sex, let's say twice a week. That's
an agreement.
I'm just saying
that's a verbal contract.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Wait, let's stop right there. I love how he goes and creates a very unrealistic expectation for his guy example as opposed to the woman. Her expectation is to have 3 kids in 8 years. His expectation is to have sex twice a week for a whole lifetime. You gotta be kidding me right now. For one, no husband who truly loves his wife is going to even put that expectation on her, let alone make her sign a contract saying it. Like I said, everything he's saying is not in realism and is making the marriage contract sound worse the more he explains it. Why would anyone get a marriage contract?
We're agreeing that we get in there at least twice a week. All of a sudden, she's like, I'm not in the mood anymore. She's like, oh, now I'm on my
that
period.
Won't be all of a sudden. That'd be almost immediate. But go ahead.
Okay, and then months into it, right?
Yeah.
She says, well, I only want to have sex once every 6 months. Should he stay there? You both agreed initially, like, yo, we're gonna do this consistently, and now he's getting it. Should he stay there? So to me, what's very important about the marriage is that before you get into it, both of you guys need to agree upon everything. This is where I think the nuance in the evolution, agree on everything, so the woman's protected as well as the man is protected. And so to me, that's what me and my wife did. Before we got married, we talked about everything. Every single scenario, every single thing.
But you're not going to know everything. That's why marriage is a journey, because you don't know everything that you're going to come across. You're not going to be able to talk about everything. You're only going to be able to talk about what you want. This is why I say a marriage contract is terrible, because it's pretty much picking apart your entire marriage. So how can you really enjoy it? Sometimes trying to oversimplify things just make everything more complicated. But leave your perspective in the comments. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Peace out.